guys know in the quote-unquote authoritarian China, the average retirement age is 54 years old. Meanwhile, Ben Shapiro said this is unsustainable. Isn't that funny? You guys know the average retirement age in Russia is 62 for men. In Russia, you get a pension starting 62 years old. When you're a man, when you're a woman, you get a pension when you're 57. Guaranteed pension, guaranteed retirement for everyone, no matter what your profession is. That is what they have in Russia. But Cornball West wants you to believe that Russia is an authoritarian country. Social Democrats like Cornel West will say you're on a Jimmy Dore plantation if you don't have Putin derangement syndrome, if you're not willing to admit that Russia is an authoritarian country. Russia has every single domestic policy that Bernie Sanders and Cornball West is currently fighting for in America. Meanwhile, they want you to believe that Russia is authoritarian. They want you to believe that China is authoritarian. And these are the questions that Marxists want you to ask yourself, that I, as a communist, want you to ask yourself. You guys say that communism is not freedom. You guys believe that capitalism is freedom. If you don't have the freedom to retire, how are you free? If you don't have the right to retire, if you're not able to retire, how are you truly free? If you don't have the right to pursue happiness later in your life, despite paying into a system that make other people retire, how can you say you're free? Americans have no idea what freedom means. They think freedom means the freedom to go homeless, as I showed you guys earlier. They think freedom means the freedom to be able to get laid off from your job. You are not a free country if you don't have the ability to retire. Zoya is love. Zoya is life. What's popping, my friend? Look at Zoya spitting mad facts, my friend. Mad facts. Retirement age under 60s. Here are the countries where the retirement age is under 60. Big shout out to Zoya for providing me this list. China, North Korea. You remember the authoritarian North Korea? The North Korea that we all should be afraid of. Remember? The authoritarian North Korea. They don't work their seniors to death. Iran. You notice how these are all the countries that the ruling class wants us to hate? Isn't that interesting? Did no one else find that interesting? The fact that all the countries that we are told to hate, like China, Russia, the DPRK, they provide retirement and housing for their people. Isn't that interesting? Why? The same right wingers like, I'm an independent thinker, man. I question the COVID narrative. I don't like Dr. Fauci, blah, 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 blah. Those same people believe everything they were told about China. They believe everything they were told about DPRK. They believe everything they were told by Iran. Russia, Vietnam, Malaysia, Namibia, Venezuela, Indonesia, Egypt, Turkey, Pakistan, Oman, Peru, Thailand, Philippines, Saudi Arabia, Uzbekistan, and not the European Union. Meanwhile, they want you to love the European Union while calling all those other countries, especially a lot of the countries we hate, ruthless authoritarian. I am begging you guys to decolonize your mind. I am begging you guys. Oh, come on, Nick. How can you call yourself a communist? Communism is authoritarianism. That's what people would say with a straight face. Nick, don't you know communism is authoritarianism? Meanwhile, in America, seniors are forced to work at Walmart and say, welcome to Walmart because they can't retire. I was just a Walmart family. Senior citizen there. Hey, welcome to Walmart. Every time I see it, my fucking heart breaks. So you want to know what they have in the authoritarian China? And I mentioned this a few times on the channel. Not only do they have the retirement age at 54 years old, China has programs to enhance senior living. They believe in lifetime learning. You know how American seniors are depressed? They lose the will to live because I explained earlier, they turn you to a factory robot where your life has no purpose. That's by design. And Ben Shapiro's like, come on, man, these people have to work until the day they die or they get depressed and they will kill themselves. Meanwhile, in China, the country that Tucker Carlson wants us to hate. Remember, Tucker Carlson, the anti-establishment fighter, wants you to hate this country. China is creating national universities, also tuition-free universities for retired Chinese seniors so they can have a lifetime learning society. Because studies show that when senior citizens are constantly engaged, constantly learning new skills, learning new languages, learning new instruments, that increases their happiness and that increases how long they live. Seniors who continue to read. For example, why do you guys think Noam Chomsky is still alive? Noam Chomsky famously said he doesn't retire. He still communicates. He still talk about politics because what else is there to do? Since he's older, so he got constantly engaged because he has nothing else to do. It keeps him sharp. And I truly do believe that. Like if you're a senior citizen and you've been tricked into being a factory robot, you will celebrate your demise. But if you're a senior, you continue to learn new skills. When you give yourself a purpose, when you care about your health, when you got a system that can provide for your health, that increase your longevity. This is why this is why you see happiness among Chinese citizens that destroy the happiness in our country. Listen to this. China's Ministry of Education released a notice on Thursday that it has decided to set up a national university for the aged, a move that experts believe is intended to cope with the aging society and build a lifeline learning society. On the basis of the Open University of China, the National University for the Aged is a national education resource sharing platform for senior citizens with their students aged 60 or above, and their curriculum extensively ranging from foreign languages, computer skills, music and dance, to photography, painting, sports, cooking, craft, and other skills. So in America, our grandparents, our seniors are forced to work at Walmart and be a greeter. Meanwhile, in China, these motherfuckers are busting out dance moves. In China, these motherfuckers are creating dance teams and having fucking showdowns. My imagination runs wild. I can only imagine like senior citizen dance teams stunning on each other, having showdowns. They dancing. You know how capitalists say, "Oh man, if you feel like you've been left behind by society, learn to code." They are teaching people to code in China. Older people, they just giving them computer skills for free. They dancing, they cooking, they eating good, they playing sports, they taking care of themselves, they learning new languages. Meanwhile, American seniors are forced to cut their pills in half because they can't afford their prescription medicine. But Tucker Carlson wants you to hate this country. Americans, including liberals, want you to hate China. I have personal criticism of China, but we should admire China for what they have accomplished. Well, I would say, I'm not going to say you should. I'm going to tell you my personal beliefs. I have critiques of China, but when you look at the system, when you look at the historical context, when you look at the amount of people that they lift out of poverty, when you see their amazing infrastructure, when you see how Chinese people are extremely enthusiastic about the future. You know how Americans are very pessimistic about the future. They feel like doomsday is about to happen. They feel like the country on the wrong track. When you ask Chinese people, when you ask Poles in China, they are extremely optimistic about the future. They're extremely proud of their government. They're looking. They are living in the future. They got high-speed rail. They got all this crazy infrastructure. China is literally living in the future. So my personal opinion is I admire what China has accomplished given the historical challenges that they face, given the slaughter that their people face because of Japanese imperialism, after what they faced because of British colonialism, because of the Opium Wars, And then they managed to feed their massive population. Despite the West trying to derail them, they managed to become a world superpower based on the premise of helping countries build instead of bankrupting them. How can people not be extremely impressed by China, man? I am not telling you to say that China's a perfect country, but how can people not be impressed? It's a market socialist country that imprisons billionaires, imprisons bankers for corruption. You hear stories all the time about China executing a billionaire. You know the fucking dream? It happens all the time in China. They seize the banks. They seized the banks. So now the average rent in China is $500. In China, their average salary is $49,000 in United States currency, which is more than the average worker making in this country. 60% of workers make $30,000 or less. In China, the average salary is $49,000. Meanwhile, their rent is only $500. Meanwhile, they pay for health care. They get free education. Do you guys understand how we're getting fucked? And people don't understand how we're getting fucked because they believe the corporate media and they believe that China is some sort of hellhole. They don't look into other countries. They believe that North Korea is a hellhole. Do you guys understand why they have a concerted reason to tell you that every country that they're enemies of is a hellhole? They're trying to convince you that Russia is a hellhole. Remember Jon Stewart, we don't have clean subways because that's the cost of freedom. That's a real quote from Jon Stewart that he just said. They have capitalists have a concerted, it's very crucial for them to demonize other countries so you guys don't realize how much you're getting fucked. Honestly, like, the only thing that stopped me from moving to China is the language barrier and my revolutionary commitment, not the right word. Obligation. I think that's a better word. My revolutionary obligation. Because people ask me, like, will you leave America? In a heartbeat, my friends. Why are you attached to this shit? I will leave this country in a heartbeat, my friends. The number one thing that stopped me is that language barrier. I don't want to be in a country where I don't speak the language. That seemed very scary to me. And Mandarin is very hard to learn. Like, English to Mandarin is one of the harder transitions. If I knew Mandarin, I'll be fucking out of here, my friends. And another reason is because I have a revolutionary obligation. I have family here. So as much as I want to pack my bags and go to another country, which I would in that heartbeat if it wasn't for this revolutionary obligation, I would love to go live in Brazil and train jiu-jitsu with a Gracie. To train Muay Thai in Thailand? There's all these gyms in Thailand that I always wanted to train at. It's always been a dream for me to go to Thailand to train. I always wanted to do that. And it's very cheap to live in Thailand. I knew people because I trained with a lot of pro fighters. I trained with Bellator fighters. I had a few UFC fighters, including Jason High I used to train with. They used to go to Thailand. I knew a guy who used to go to Thailand all the time. Dude, he told me, guys, it's so beautiful. And we can afford, as Americans, unfortunately, that we can live in the most beautiful areas of Vietnam. It was something I used to think about all the time. Like, man, I would love to just retire and live in Vietnam. But there's a revolutionary obligation that we have. I have a ton of family. I have a giant-ass family. What I'm going to do is just leave this country and leave my family to this fucking unhinged police state? I'm not even saying I will rule that out. But that's what keeps me here. For all the right-wingers who say, well, if you like China so much, Nick, why don't you leave? If you like Brazil so much, why don't you leave? If you like Russia so much, why don't you leave? Because revolutionary obligation.